Contorted bodies, deranged serial killers, and the return of Season 1's The Tap Dance Man. Them the Scare, the second season in the Them anthology, is a terrifying addition that explains you can't be racist if your ex-girlfriend was black.
My first girlfriend was black.
In this video, we'll be taking a look at some of the season's biggest unanswered questions and its connection to Season 1. So be warned, there will be Season 1 spoilers, and I also have an entire video on that if you want a refresher. Without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you thought of the season in the comments. Whereas Season 1 focused on the Emery family moving to the predominantly white neighborhood of Compton, California in the 1950s, Season 2 fast forwards 40 years later to 1991 Los Angeles. The story follows two main characters. First, there's Detective Don Reeve, who believes a serial killer is on the loose, leaving a trail of contorted bodies in his wake. The second is Edmund Gaines, a struggling actor who makes ends meet by performing as a mascot at Cheddar's Pizza Palace, a Chuck E. Cheese ripoff. And it's pretty clear what the show is trying to do here: show us the perspectives of both the killer, Edmund, and Detective Reeve. There's just one problem. Edmund killed himself 2 years before the murders Reeves investigates, so how could he be the killer? To make sense of this, we must understand the unique relationship between Edmund and Reeve. The two are twins, having been given up for adoption by none other than Season 1's Ruby Lee Emery. Ruby knew she was not mentally fit to take care of children. Growing up, she saw her mother descend into madness and kept the dead body of her baby in a box. Ruby herself was haunted by Doris, a white girl who made her think her blackness was evil, culminating in her covering herself in white paint to become the perfect white cheerleader. Combine this with a father who's out of the picture, the right choice for Ruby was to leave these children in the care of Bernice Mott, an abusive foster mother who will become the show's first contorted victim. For 3 years, Edmund and Reeve lived under the care of Bernice, who would often trap them in a wooden box as punishment if they misbehaved. It was a cruel environment. They'd be saved from this plight by Athena, played by Pam Grier, who adopts the two into a loving home. Edmund and Reeve were inseparable, so much so that Athena and her husband William would have to separate the two just so that they could form emotional bonds with someone other than each other. One day, Athena took Reeve to the movies and came back to find her husband had suffered a heart attack. Beside him was young Edmund clutching the unopened bottle of heart medication. There's no reason to believe any foul play was here. In fact, the demon that will eventually take hold of Edmund doesn't manifest until years later. But this event now causes Athena to think of her dead husband every time she looks at this poor boy. Combine this with now having to take care of 2 children as a single mom on a toy shop employee's salary, Athena makes the difficult decision to return Edmund back to his foster mother. From there, he'll be taken in by a well-to-do white family who find Edmund difficult, perhaps a result of being separated from his sister, and they'll even return him back to the foster system on his 12th birthday. And let me know if any of you caught this, but it's implied one of the main reasons is that this family thought he could sexually assault their biological daughter as he was going through puberty.
You know you had issues controlling your emotions. You were 12, going through puberty, all that entails. Meantime, we had Lacey, our biological flesh and blood. We had to make sure she was safe.
I also found it quite interesting that they've adopted another black child, so I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. Edmund had a childhood full of trauma, and he projects his frustrations to a prostitute in episode 4.
Look at you. Nothing but a traumatized child. Your life has no foundation.
Okay, date's over.
Reeve, on the other hand, would grow up in a loving home. However, she was never told she was adopted, and that the recollections of a brother she had was merely an imaginary friend.
When I was a little girl, I had an imaginary friend that I used to play with all the time.
Edmund, however, still remembers his sister, and in 1989 visits her only to discover she has this perfect life and has no idea who he is. He never discloses his relationship with her and is subsequently forced out of her home when she finds out he's not just a friendly neighbor coming to say hello. It's this event and a combination of trauma, resentment, and pain that allows an entity known as the Scare to take hold of him.
Ever since I left your house,
All I see is blood.
The Scare is a demonic entity that has taken on the deformed appearance of a Raggedy Andy doll. As a child, Edmund loved his Raggedy Andy doll, but Athena wanted him to play with black dolls as she saw Raggedy Andy associated with blackface imagery and minstrelsy commonly attributed to Pickaninny and Mammy dolls. In fact, Harvard professor Robin Bernstein states that, quote, Raggedy Ann dolls even encouraged violence in children's play. Their softness allowed children to beat, throw soil, and hang them. As this entity consumes Edmund, he kills his first victim, a worker at the casting agency who'd commonly ridicule his auditions. This is Edmund's only kill in the show, as the other ones are done by the Scare after Edmund commits suicide. The Scare's murders are an elaborate way for Reeve to piece together her past and confront a systematically racist police force. The show is set against the backdrop of the Rodney King beating. The LAPD initially stood by the actions of its white officers, who savagely beat Mr. King with kicks and batons as he lay face down on the pavement. So Reeve is pissed when the department doesn't stick up for her when she's accused of police brutality. The implication for not doing that is because she's black.
What happened to closing ranks, Lieutenant?
The Scare's murders all connect to Reeve's long-lost brother. Murder 1 was Bernice Mott, Reeve and Edmund's abusive foster mother who was found stuffed under the kitchen sink, the place Reeve would hide to escape. Murder 2 was the drug dealer who used his child, like Bernice did, to conceal his activities. Murders 3 and 4 were the inseparable twin sisters, just like Reeve and Edmund were, and finally little Benito, whose brother was taken away from him, just like Edmund was taken away from Reeve. It's only when Detective Diaz shows Reeve a picture of Edmund that she pieces all of this together. This is her brother she met in 1989, and the murders are all clues linking the two of them. But as she goes to get her son, who she thinks is the Scare's next victim, she's stopped by her former partner, racist cop Ronald McKinney. What he doesn't know is that she's secretly recording his rant confessing to all sorts of corruption, something that will later pin the Scare's murders on him and acquit Detective Reed of any wrongdoing. The altercation gets heated when McKinney shoots Diaz and Reeves shoots McKinney, allowing Reeve to run back to the place where this all started and save her son. As Reeve investigates Bernice Mott's place, she is flooded with flashbacks connecting her with her birth mother and Edmund. There's even this moment where we see Reeve trapped in a box repeating "I can't breathe," which conjures images of the murder of George Floyd at the hands of police. The Scare reveals himself to Reeve, tempting her to join him, but she doesn't falter. She remembers how Edmund protected her, was a loving brother, and what happened to the two of them wasn't their fault.
What you've become, what you've given yourself to, is not you.
You'll even see these evil versions of Edmund and Reeve behind them, and you can either give into it like Edmund did or fight it. Reeve's words have a profound impact on him as they cause his body to contort, just like the bodies of his victims. His last words to Reeve are, "I love you." Reeve ends up quitting the force. She goes from actual police officer to saying "F the police." We pick up 6 months later and everything seems to be going well. Even Reeve's ex-husband Corey is back in the picture. Reeve finds in her baby box a picture of her mother as a child with the family from season 1. But the most concerning development is the reappearance of the Tap Dance Man. In season 1, the Tap Dance Man was this demonic manifestation of Henry's guilt for not being there when his wife was assaulted and baby murdered. He was at the movies when this occurred, and you'll see blackface characters on the screen, which is partly why he manifests in this manner. His catchphrase, "What you gonna do?" is a taunt at Henry, basically stating, "What are you gonna do about the white men who did this to your wife and child?" The Tap Dance Man and the Scare are similar in the sense they both believe death sets people free from the pain of the world. The Scare wants Reeve to kill herself so that she can join Edmund, and the Tap Dance Man wants Henry to kill his family to set them free. Whether the Tap Dance Man and the Scare are two separate entities or a singular one that manifests in different forms remains to be seen, but one thing is clear: this entity seems to be part of a family curse that passes on from generation to generation. And some of you may be asking, what was on those letters addressed to Edmund and Reeve from their mother? Unfortunately, we never find out. They could be a simple note attached to the blankets, or perhaps an explanation why she gave them up. But now I turn it over to you. What did you think of Them Season 2, and which season did you like more? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, punch your phone.